Welcome to Bridge Class in Economics. I am the presenter, Li启安, and my advisor is Professor Jun Jie. Let's go over today's agenda. First, we will explain the definition of surplus and use the supply and demand curve to illustrate it. Next, we will discuss the definition of externalities and use real-life examples to help everyone understand. After that, we will conduct a policy assessment, allowing everyone to calculate the cost of firm under different government policies. Finally, we will briefly introduce other topics that we will learn in economics. Let's talk about the definition of surplus. First, let's take a look at this supply and demand curve that everyone has already learned in high school. Supply curve is upward sloping and demand curve is downward sloping. The demand curve is composed of each individual's willing to pay, while the supply curve is composed of each individual willing to sell. Next, let's talk about surplus. Consumer surplus is the total amount of each individual's willing to pay minus the market equilibrium price. It's the blue area in the graph. Producer surplus is the total amount of market equilibrium price minus each individual willing to sell. It's the green area in the graph. Explain surplus in the simple way. It quantifies the perceived profits that consumer and producer think they have gained. In this case, the sum of producer surplus and consumer surplus is the social welfare. Let's move on to tax. Why do price and quantity change when government imposes a tax? I'll explain this using a daily life example. Suppose I go to eat 2 burgers that cost $30 for each, and government does not impose any tax. In this case, our supply and demand balance at point E. However, if the government imposes a tax of $20, I have to pay more for a burger. As a result, I won't buy second burger because the price is too high for me. Additionally, the revenue by the burger seller decreases, which might make some seller unwilling to sell burger anymore. According to this story, our Q star will shift to the left, consumer spending will move up, and producers' revenue will move down. Consequently, social welfare decreases, and it consists of blue area, green area, and purple area. The gray area in the graph, called deadweight loss, which reduces social welfare. Now, we will talk about the externality. Let's start by discussing the positive externality. In a vaccine market, people who get vaccinated not only reduce their own risk of infection, but also decrease the chance of disease transmission, creating a positive externality. Therefore, social welfare increases. Looking at the supply and demand curve, because the vaccinated individual have a positive impact on society, the demand curve shifts upward, causing a social value rise and creating a new equilibrium point. However, the actual number of people getting vaccinated does not reach the new equilibrium point, resulting in an increase in social welfare, but not to the maximum level. The area that falls short of the maximum social welfare is called deadweight loss. Next, let's discuss the negative externality. When producers manufacture goods, they generate pollution, which has a negative effect. As a result, social welfare decreases. Using a supply and demand curve, if we consider the cost of pollution, our equilibrium point should be at the intersection of S and D. However, in reality, we overproduced. The supply curve seems to shift outward. appearing to increase social welfare. But we have not accounted for the pollution cost. After subtracting the pollution cost from the additional welfare we gain, we find that we still have a loss represented by the triangular area. This triangular area is called deadweight loss. What can the government do to reduce deadweight loss? The government has the following option. First, do nothing and let it be. Second, require each company to reduce by 25% emission. Third, require an overall reduction of 25% of emission, but allow the tradable carbon credit so companies can decide their strategies based on their circumstances. The government's goal is to reduce carbon emission by 25%, lowering the total emission from 160 tons to 120 tons. Firm A's cost to reduce 1 ton of emission is $100. Firm B's cost to reduce 1 ton of emission is $200. Policy 1. The government asks each company to reduce emission by 25%. It means each company needs to reduce by 20 tons. Firm A's cost will be 20 tons multiplied $100 per ton equal $2,000. Firm B's cost will be 20 tons multiplied $200 per ton equal $4,000. The total cost equal $6,000. The second option policy is tradable emission permits. Let me briefly introduce the key points of this policy. Please see the blue box. First, only those with permits can emit. Second, one permit allows the emission of 1 ton of carbon dioxide. Third, permits are tradable. Fourth, under the new policy, each company will receive 60 permits. Additionally, let's assume that company B buys 20 permits from company A for $3,000. Let's look at the cost of firm A first. Originally, it had 60 permits, but it sells 20 permits and earns $3,000. This leaves company A with 40 permits to use. The amount of carbon emissions company A needs to reduce is 80 tons minus 40 tons equal 40 tons. The cost of reduced emission is 40 tons multiplied $100 per ton equal $4,000. Firm A's total carbon emission cost is $4,000 minus $3,000 equal $1,000. Now, let's look at firm B. Firm B originally has 60 permits and spends $3,000 to buy 20 permits from company A. This gives firm B 80 permits, so it does not need to spend additional costs to reduce emission. Firm B's total carbon emission cost is $3,000 spent to buy 20 permits from company A. Total cost equal $4,000. We can see that the policy 2 total cost is less than policy 1. Finally, I am going to talk about other topics that we will learn in economics. In the section on elasticity, we will explore how price fluctuation affects consumer demand. For example, why do people worry a lot when the price of egg goes up, but seem less concerned when prices at the high-end steakhouse increase? In the section of monopoly, we will discuss the impact of monopolies on the market. For instance, with Uber Eats planning to acquire Foodpanda, how should we analyze the impact of this acquisition on us? Besides these 4 topics that I am more familiar with, there are many other interesting subjects that help you understand the cases and the effects of various aspects of everyday life. What are you waiting for? If you are interested in these topics, then enroll in an economics lesson to know more about your life.